work. To me, I be work. See me do me dirt. So me for that work. When you walk a line. In the cafe, try me, I deserve. Nothing to be lurking. Yeah. You make a like, now you don't like it. You know I dealt with you the nicest. Nobody touched me in the righteous. Nobody touched me in a crisis. I believe that all of your dreams are duration. You took my heart, all my keys, and my patience. You took my heart, I'm a seed for decoration. You mistaken my love, I brought for you for foundation. All that I wanted from you was to give me something that I never had. Something that you never seen. Something that you never been. But I wake up and nothing's wrong. Just get ready for work. To me, I be work.
Hey y'all, it's Mocha Mima. Welcome to my channel. If it's your first time here, an extra special welcome. If you've been here before, thanks so much for coming back. Make sure y'all like and subscribe. Click on the bell button for the uploads. That way you know every time I post or go live. Y'all, last week was the National Urban League Conference. It was in Houston, Texas. Y'all, it was hot down there. Ooh, it was scorching hot. But it was in Houston anyway. Texas has its problems down there, but they have made the decision to bring it to Houston. So during the conference, they have their legacy luncheon, and Ben Crump was one of the speakers. And you guys know Ben Crump from his civil rights, the lawsuits that he has done all over the country. He's represented families such as the Floyd family from the death of George Floyd. He represented Dante Wright's family. He represented family in Florida, Trayvon Martin's family. He represented Breonna Taylor's family. He's represented Ahmaud Arbery's family. He's represented so many families to help them with getting justice for the death of their family member. He's representing right now Amir Locke's family from up in, I believe they are also in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He represents so many families. Family here in Connecticut for Randy Cox, where the cops had Randy, and I think his name is Randy Cox. They had him in the back of a police van, and he got knocked around, and now he is paralyzed, I believe, from the neck down. Got a big settlement for that family of, I believe it's $56 million settlement that family got. So Ben helps these families get monetary justice. He's not a criminal lawyer. He leaves that up to the prosecutors to take care of that. However, he helps them get monetary justice to hit them where it really hurts these people, which is in the pocketbooks, because that's what they understand. They understand that when that money goes. So he spoke to the Urban League, and the thing that he touched on was what's going on in his home state of Florida, where they are trying to erase Black people as we speak, and that is, in my opinion. You see my disclaimer going across the bottom. It's in my opinion that DeSantis, that's why I call him DeSantis or Devil Santis, is trying to erase Black people and our history from the state of Florida, but we will not stand for that. So Ben Crump, during his speech, he talked about that, and I'm going to read now a press release from the National Urban League. I'm going to abbreviate it because there's some things in it that is not about Ben Crump. And it says the National Urban League Legacy Leadership Awards luncheon features civil rights attorney Ben Crump and some other people among key speakers during the national conference. And this was from July 28th. It said today hundreds gathered as prominent civil rights and political leaders addressed attendees during this year's Legacy Leadership Awards luncheon at the National Urban League's four-day conference. It said that they were fortunate to have leaders like Ben Crump, who have dedicated their lives to the pursuit of justice and the continued fight for civil and human rights for all Americans, said Mark H. Morial, President and CEO of the National Urban League. We're at a crossroads in our nation's history, and the work that these men do on the ground is instrumental to the work and foundation of our organization. We also want to thank the guilds for hosting this event here today and look forward to our continued partnership on the work and journey ahead. Established in 1942 by Molly Moon, the National Council of Urban League Guild is an auxiliary volunteer group that supports the Urban League and its affiliates across the country. Through its 77-year history, the Guild has stimulated, developed, and promoted volunteer advocacy through local Urban League guilds. That work continues to this day, empowering communities and changing lives. Every year, the National Urban League Guilds host the Legacy Leadership Awards luncheon to pay tribute to those guild members who are leading the charge and have dedicated their lives to advocate for those who need the most help. We proudly recognize a diverse ensemble of trailblazing individuals who inspire and motivate their communities to strive for greatness in every way. The 2023 National Urban League Conference is set to be the largest and most influential gathering focused on civil rights and urban advocacy in the nation. Year after year, this event brings together leaders from various sectors, including business, government, and social advocacy, who are dedicated to exploring critical issues and initiatives that proudly impact the communities served by the Urban League network of 92 affiliates across the country. So yes, we are grateful to the Urban League for what they do. We are grateful to Ben Crump for the justice that he is getting for our Black and brown citizens through here in the United States. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play his the speech that he gave. And then after that, I will play my outro and I will see you in the next video. Make sure you like and subscribe. And thank you so much for listening.
I understand I only have 15 minutes to make my case. So may it please the court, gathered here at the 2023 National Urban League Convention, I would like to start off speaking truth to power. And I want to say privately, I want to say publicly what I have said privately, and that is Mark Morial is one of the most effective, strategic, visionary leaders in the world today. And we should salute him for 20 years of service fighting on the front line for all of our children's future. And so when I think about Mark and his strategic leadership and his vision, it had me to start to wonder, how will we maintain and keep progressing for the next 20 years, Melanie Campbell? And when I thought about that, I concluded it's how we have always progressed as a people. It's what the great Frederick Douglass taught us. Without struggle, there can be no progress. And so oftentimes people get discouraged because of the struggle. They sometimes get depressed. They become disillusioned because of the struggle. But now, brothers and sisters, I'm here to tell you we have to do like our ancestors did, like Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman understood. We can't get discouraged by the struggle. We must celebrate the struggle, because as long as we're in the struggle, that means we are making progress. So I wake up and I am encouraged to know that we're still fighting, because that means we're going to make a better tomorrow for our children, because that's what it's about, brothers and sisters. That's what it's about. We are fighting to make a better future for our children. And they're so worth the fight, aren't they? I mean, our children are so worth the fight. And we are fighting to make progress every day to give all of our children a better world, a better America, Keith Ellison, where they have an opportunity to take another breath without a police officer putting his knee on his neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. And we can give all of our children a better world, a better America, where they have an opportunity to sleep in peace without the police kicking open their front door and mutilating Breonna Taylor's body with 8 bullet holes while she is practically naked in her nightgown in her own home. And we can make a better world, a better America, where Ahmaud Arbery gets to run free without being lynched for jogging while black. Not in 1940, not in 1950, but in 2020, in our day, they lynched that brother for jogging while black. And we can give our children a better world, a better America, where they all have an equal opportunity at the American promise of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. We can do it, y'all, as long as we wake up every morning ready to celebrate the struggle. Every day. Every day. And I tell you all, we're going to have to struggle now. We're going to have to struggle when we think about what's going on in America. I can't believe it, Kendrick Meeks, that in my home state of Florida, we got an elected leader who is talking about there is no value in DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. He is saying that, we are going to start prohibiting the teaching of Black history, AP, African American history, banning some of our most iconic, celebrated authors like Maya Angelou, I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings, and Alice Walker, The Color Purple, and James Baldwin, Go Tell It on the Mountain. Well, we need to go tell it on the mountain. I mean, I know I'm talking to the choir, but the choir got to sing louder, y'all, now more than ever. I mean, and what was it just recently, Michelle? He is trying to tell our teachers that they are required to teach children that starting from middle school on, when they talk about American history and they come to slavery, they must tell them that there were some positive benefits to slavery. I mean, in what world would that ever be accepted? And how can we let them think they can get away with this in 2023? We must make sure our children know that slavery was evil, it was inhumane, and it was immoral, point blank, period. It is not debatable. It is not both sides. And when I think about Roland Martin, him banning books and not letting them teach black history, I am reminded of the great Carter G. Woodson, known as the father of black history, who said, if a race has no history, if a race has no traditions that are valued and respected enough to teach the young people, he said, then that race becomes a negligible thought in the mind of the world, and thus becomes endangered of being exterminated off the face of the earth. So we say to the elected leaders of Florida and Texas and anywhere else, we will not let you all exterminate our black history, our black literature, or our black culture. We will stand up for our children. We will speak up for our children. And we will fight for our children. And we will fight for them to the end, because our children need to know when we say Black Lives Matter that we really mean it. And I don't care where you're at. If you're on the front line with Black Lives Matter and Reverend Al and us, or if you're in the corporate executive suite, as Dr. King said, we all have a role to play in this struggle for liberty and equality for all of our children. So everybody can do something. We have to fight for our children until hell freezes over. And as you all heard me say a lot of times before, and then we have to be willing to fight on the ice. But it's not enough just to fight. We have to follow the example of Mark Morial. We have to be strategic in our fighting. So as I try to make my concluding remarks so I'm not held in contempt, I want to remind you all of something I learned from a book called Upstream Thinking. And in that book, Tim, it's pretty straightforward. The gist of it is really this. One sunny afternoon, a young brother was walking downriver, minding his business. And all of a sudden, he heard a young black child in the river say, "Help me, help me. I'm drowning, help me. I'm going to die, save me, help me." And all of a sudden, the brother looked and he saw the child and he jumped in the river. And he saved the child, dragging him on the riverbank. And he said, "Thank God I was here. If I wasn't here, that young black child would have died." And just after he gathered himself, kind of getting the water off his shoulders, he hears a second young black child, Winston Burns, in the river screaming out, "Help me, save me. I'm drowning, help me, I'm going to die." And so the brother jumps back in the river for a second time. And he saves the second black child, dragging him out on the riverbank. And as he get out on the riverbank, he said, "Thank God I was here. If I wasn't here, a second black child would have died." And just as he was gathering himself, shaking the water off, getting the water out of his hair, he heard a third black child screaming out, help me, save me, I'm going to die, help me. And so the brother jumped back in the river for a third time. And he dragged the third black child out from the riverbank. And this time, as he was dragging the third child out, he said, what I want to know is who the hell upstream keep throwing our children in the river, because it's too late to save them all once they get downstream. So what we got to do, brothers and sisters, we got to be proactive. We got to go upstream, and we got to prevent them from throwing our children, getting them caught up in the system. We got to prevent them from throwing our children in the river, getting them caught up in the school to prison pipeline. We got to go upstream. We got to prevent them from getting our children caught up in the cycle of gang violence and drugs. We got to go upstream and be strategic in making sure that we can save our children from the enemies of equality, because the enemies of equality are plotting every day when they get up. So we got to get up every day ready to plot and celebrate the struggle of how we going to win this war against those enemies of equality who got our little black children in the crosshairs. Amen? Brothers and sisters, I say we must remember what Ben Franklin said. He said that democracy is like two wolves and a lamb voting on what to have for lunch. You ain't got to be as smart as Mark Mariel to know who's going to win that vote. But he said liberty is making sure that that lamb is well armed to protest that vote. So what we got to do is make sure that young marginalized lambs of color are well armed to protest them being caught up in the crosshairs of the enemies of equality, whether it's voter suppression, whether it's denial of access to capital, denial of access to health care. We got to be ready. And how do we do that? How do we win this war against the enemies of equality? We do just like Mark Mariel. We are strategic, we are visionary, and we speak truth to power every chance we get. And we must always remember we won't win this war with violence or guns or bullets or any of those means. We will win this war with intellect, with diplomacy, with strategic thinking, because how we win this war against the enemies of equality is we must make sure that our children are more intelligent than those who will seek to oppress them. That's how we win this war. I'm borderline on contempt, so I will tell you this. My personal hero, Thurgood Marshall, said that the basis of the American Constitution is simply this: that a black baby born to a black mother, the most uneducated black mother, the most inarticulate black mother, the most impoverished black mother, has the same exact rights as a white baby born to a white mother, the most educated white mother, the most articulate white mother, the most affluent white mother, just by virtue of that baby drawing its first breath as an American citizen. Now, Justice Marshall said, I know that's not the case in America today, but I challenge anybody to say that's not a goal worth fighting for. I challenge anybody to say that's not what makes America the great beacon of hope and justice for all the world to marvel. So when we fight for the George Floyds of the world, And we fight for the Breonna Taylors of the world. And we fight for the Ahmaud Arbery's of the world. And we fight for the Tyree Nichols of the world. And we fight for the Ezell Fours of the world. And we fight for the Eric Gardners of the world. And we fight for the Sandra Blands of the world. And we fight for the Tamir Rices of the world. We fight for the Michael Browns of the world. We fight for the Trayvon Martins of the world. And we fight for those unknown hashtags that nobody ever mentions their name. Then we remember we must fight for whom my grandmother, using the biblical reference, the least of these. That's how we make America live up to its creed. That's how we make America the great beacon of hope and justice for all the world to marvel. But most importantly, brothers and sisters, assemble at this 2023 National Urban League Convention. When we fight for the least of these, that's how we help make America, America for all Americans. And I rest my case. Thank you.
Work, work, work. To me, I feel work, 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 work. See me do me dirt, 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 dirt. So me by that work, 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 work. When you walk a line, 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 line. In the girl, feel mad, dirt, 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 dirt. Try me, I deserve it. Nothing to have you lurking. Yeah. You make a like, now you don't like it. You know I dealt with you the nicest. Nobody touched me in the righteous. Nobody touched me in a crisis. I believe that all